Of course, it goes without saying that there is clear discrimination and inequality between Israelis and Palestinians. A lot of people have the misconception, admittedly, as did I, that the Palestinians who stayed behind and became Israeli are traitors. But keep watching, because trust me, life's not all rainbows and butterflies for them either. Let's start with the general rules in all the land. As an Arab, you have to be super careful what you say and do, because anything can happen, and people were always warning us not to say anything controversial. We noticed that there is not a single big Palestinian flag anywhere except for in Bethlehem or Beit Lahem. When we asked why, they said, "You're not allowed to wear the hatta, and anyone who says the word Palestine will be interrogated and will get in trouble." This makes me think, they're trying so hard to wipe the idea that Palestine ever existed in our minds. But of course, they're going to fail miserably. Because of them, there are millions of Palestinians in the world outside of Palestine, so even if they try to silence the ones inside of Palestine, the rest of them, like myself, will not shut up about it. And we make sure to teach our kids about it, like my parents taught me and their parents taught them. So unfortunately for them, the idea of Palestine will not fade away with time, but rather get stronger with time. I think with most people, when they move away and through the generations, their culture, traditions, whatever ties they have to their ethnicity might dilute. And I'm sure that Israelis were hoping that that would happen with us. Maybe they can kill the older generation because the young ones will eventually forget. But because we had our country stolen from us, Palestinians try even harder to pass down the patriotism and ethnic ties to their kids. My nephews and nieces, for example, are fourth generation Palestinians outside of Palestine, yet they still identify as Palestinians, dress in Palestinian clothing, and are very proud. We make sure to integrate our culture in every aspect of our lives, even down to our tissue boxes. So I'm going to tell you about what happened when we went to the Aqsa Mosque. Apparently, and I didn't know this, but only Muslims are allowed in the mosque, and women are supposed to be covered. And I don't mean the kind of covered that's like only on the head but can still wear pants. I mean you had to be like wearing a skirt or abaya or something. So that's fine. But the interesting thing, however, is that Israeli soldiers are the ones in and out of the mosque making sure only Muslims enter. So they have their uncovered Israeli soldier women inside the mosque with their pants and their gear, and Israeli soldiers confirming with us that we are Muslim before letting us in. And they were asking us to prove it by reciting something from the Quran.
No, you're not videotaping me. Khalas.
He's asking us to read
Khalas,
Fatiha.
no.
Why?
You can't. No, I'm not going to read Fatiha. Why?
Read Fatiha.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن مالك يوم الدين. Good? Good? You want me to keep going?
Now, I'm going to tell you about some of the things we heard from interviewing Palestinians on both sides of the land. But in order to keep them safe, I'm not going to release any information about them or even show you the interviews. So you can choose to believe me or not, but that's what the people said. Let's start with Hebron or Khalil. When we arrived, it looked like a ghost town, like what you see in war movies. It was dark, there was no one playing or walking in the streets, it looked worn down, it was scary. There were, however, a couple of Israeli little kids playing, but they don't allow the Palestinian kids the same kind of luxury. We even got yelled at while we were there.
Basically, I was in the washroom and they were waiting for me. And then what happened while I was in the washroom?
The Israeli IDF, the soldiers, came and started shouting at us because we're not allowed to stand in that area. So she made us go outside to a different area because the other guy was speaking to her in Hebrew, the boy. He's a boy and speaking to her in Hebrew and telling her just wait, they're waiting, there are people, and she's like, just go. Let them go, they can wait there. They're not allowed to stand here.
Apparently, in the Abrahamic mosque, Muslims don't always get the luxury of praying there when they want to. The imam doesn't get the luxury of making the call to prayer there 5 times a day. He has to take permission from the Israeli soldiers every single time. And if they feel like allowing him to make the call, a little army of Israeli soldiers escort him into a locked room where he can make the call. The day we went, we got lucky and heard the call. When we were done, we happened to pass by a young boy living in Khalil. He was Palestinian. I would say he was about 15 years old maybe, and he was telling us that the Israelis drive at full speed sometimes in these narrow streets when they see Palestinian kids walking in hopes of accidentally running them over. They give them a curfew, they yell at them, they beat them like whenever they feel like it, and no one gets to say a word. That's the daily life struggles they go through over there. Of course, we also had to go through a lot of security before being allowed to enter the area. Like they even had to take our passports. And trust, the only thing that made our lives slightly easier over there is that our passport is Canadian. I can't imagine what the Palestinians go through when they have to do that. Moving on to the occupied side. Of course, only Palestinian Israelis are allowed to live there. But let's clear the misconception that Arab Israelis are traitors. Their life is not all rainbows and butterflies. They feel like they have it hard from both sides. The Israelis mistreat them, and the Arabs misunderstand them. The Arabs look at them and treat them like they are traitors for accepting the Israeli passport and lifestyle, and the Israelis discriminate against them so much. But they didn't just accept this lifestyle, they were forced into it, because they either take the passport and live their lifestyle, or they're stateless, kicked out, or worse. But the way they see it is that unlike those of us who fled, they decided to stay in order to remind the Israelis that Palestinians exist and they are not going away. They decided to stay in their own land and suffer the discrimination and mistreatment and prison-like lifestyle with Israelis just so they don't abandon their homeland. Mind you, the Israelis monitor what the schools are teaching about Palestine and Israel, so most of the time, the families have to secretly teach their kids the truth about the history of Palestine and the whole conflict. They also have to constantly warn their kids to be careful not to say anything about Palestine because they could get in a lot of trouble, if not get killed because of it. They are not allowed to display the Palestinian flag anywhere, even in their own homes. They also get searched and given a hard time when they need to go to work. For example, if they see a hijabi woman, they stop her, search her, ask her a bunch of questions before they let her go despite carrying an Israeli passport. I tried to interview someone else to get more information about this, but she refused because she was too scared of what they might do to her if they somehow found out. Other misconceptions I want to clear up is that Israelis don't just discriminate against anyone who is Muslim. They discriminate against anyone who is Arab or even a person of color. So even Christians and Black Israeli soldiers get discriminated against. Now I know I talked a lot about the mistreatment of Israelis towards Palestinians, but I gotta be fair. There are some Arabs working with and for the Israelis who are the ones who bother other Arabs. We met Arabs in the IDF from families that we know, and we were shocked. Lastly, I want to say, on the news, you see Palestine as a war zone. But the Israelis like to make it sound like they're living in peace and everything is all rainbows and butterflies, like they're living in New York or it's a free country. But I would say the best way to describe Palestine is a prison, not a war zone. People are not getting shot at 24/7 like we might think, except maybe in Gaza, but then again, I don't know because I haven't witnessed it. But they're also not free to say and do as they please, and they're always being searched and interrogated. Being in my homeland felt surreal. It took me a while to process the fact that I was there, especially looking at the Dome of the Rock in real life and not just through a picture. But having said that, it was stressful, which is why I have mad respect for people who are living there, especially on the occupied side. There is so much tension, but on the Palestinian side, you can hate and express a little more openly than the people on the occupied side. They really have to suck it up and put up with a lot from them, and must get used to calling it Israel. I was on that side for literally 2 days, and even that was too much for me to handle. But these people have to put up with it their whole lives. In conclusion, I gathered that Palestine as a whole, occupied or not, is not a war zone, and it's not a free country. It's an open-air prison with different levels of security.